Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to lesson 64 in this series on developing a survival game. In this video, we'll finish working on our day-night cycle. We'll put together our cube map, our game time, and actually have them work together to change our sky based on the time of day. This project in the series has been brought to you by Patreon sponsors, and you too can help this channel out, and all you have to do is hit that like button down below. And if you've not already, make sure to hit the subscribe and notify icon. And if you want to take your support a bit further, consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. All right, open up your projects and we'll make a start. Hi everyone, and welcome to part 3 in our day-night cycle. In this video, we'll actually make the cycle part of our day-night cycle. I know I said we'd do that in the last video, but clearly that took longer than expected. Now, also just to quickly explain our flying tree that happened last time. I don't know what caused it. The way we set up our foliage generator should have prevented that from happening, and I've not been able to get it to redo it. If I can work out what glitch there is, I will take care of it. So all of that said, what we're gonna do now is go into our core, go into our actors, go into our weather system, and open up our BP weather system. And okay, we're just gonna get rid of the lightning for a bit because that's gonna get uber annoying during this next little phase if that's still going off. And what we're going to do here is actually, we're gonna do that, but pause for a moment and go back to our core, go to our interfaces, and we're gonna make a new interface real quick. So blueprint, not blendables, blueprints, blueprint interface, and this is I underscore game state. Pop it open. Stop getting your revenge on me, Unreal. This new function is really get date time. All we're gonna do here is have one return node called, well, date time. And I'll give you date time, and I'll give you a guess what it is of. It's a Boolean. Yeah, it's date time structure. All right, go ahead, compile, save, go back, find your settings under core, go to your game state, and in your game state, compile real quick. Oh, sorry, no, I skipped a step. Go to your class settings, and so used to already having these things already in place. Add your game state to it, compile now, save, even though mine already does that. Open this get game state thing up, and in here all we're going to do is find our game date time node, pass it through, compile, save, close these windows out, and go back to our BP weather system. So we need to create a new set of variables here that need to be something that can be edited by instance. If I see I have a read none error at this part in my comment, I am just gonna literally post the timestamp, just as an FYI. All right, that said, we're gonna create this variable. I'm gonna call it sunref. This will go into a category called references, and it needs to be of type directional light. It needs to be, again, something that we can edit. The eyeball needs to be visible. And as a preempt to the other comment I'm gonna get, that big glowing thing is the sun. And a preempt to the next comment I am going to get, the sun is a light source. The light source is a directional light. All right, sorry for being a bit pedantic about that, but the number of people that said they could not find their sun, they have no sun here, despite us having just, it's a directional light. Or who said they couldn't find the option to fill this reference in when they put the BP actor into the world. So when we click our BP weather actor, and I compile this really quick, and we have that right there, it's because they skipped that step about the eyeball. That's why I am stressing this so much. Seriously, I will post a timestamp or not respond. It'll be one of the few things I might not respond to ever. All right. We're gonna take this. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure this is valid. And instead of doing the question mark one, we're gonna do the is valid function. Why is that? Because we're gonna have a lot of things we're gonna check as is valid. But for now, we're just gonna put a branch in. Now, if you want to be really cautious, you could do the is question mark and have a print string for each one that isn't valid. And in fact, in my prep file, that's what I did. That this is overkill. Don't do it this way. You can if you want to, but I strongly recommend against it. So we need to make sure that's valid, because what we're going to do is mess with the sun in just a moment. So on our event tick down here, what we're going to do is we are going to right click and type in get game state. We are going to take this value and we are going to get date time as a message. Plug that into there. All right. Now what we're going to do is we are going to convert this kind of back out of what we already have. We are going to do get hour, not hour 12, just get hour. We're going to take that again. Actually, I'm going to put a reroute in to make my life a tiny bit easier. And we are going to do get minute. And then we are going to do it again, put another reroute again, just again to make my life easier, of get year. No, I'm joking, get second. Someone actually got ahead of me and typed in get year and is just staring at their screen in frustration. Sorry, not sorry. Also, impressive that you got ahead of me there. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to, we need 3 of these values. And I don't mean each of these values, we need 3 values from these 3. So what do I mean by this? Well, what we're going to do first is just take these 3 nodes. We're going to collapse into a function called get time. We're going to make this a pure function. Our input will be our time struct, and our output will be 3 floats. So we'll create 1 float right away called minutes only. We need the minutes only, potentially. I'll say what I mean by potentially in just a moment. Total time and our hours and minutes. So part of this setup is based on earlier versions of Unreal. In earlier versions of Unreal, we could not easily update our Skylight. Where is my Skylight? We didn't have this thing. Now there was a node we could use to do so. That node was extremely intensive. And let me tell you, I've tested it, even running for 20 seconds every second. It made my 3070's GP drop the FPS on this to about 7 frames a second from about 120 originally. So it's a real beast. In 2.6, that node was introduced, and even on a PS3, you see, I think there's like 1 or 2 frame rate drop. Even I'm running that on a tick, which is what it's doing technically now. So yeah, it's been really optimized. So we had to have a workaround in earlier versions. I'm gonna show you my workaround in case you've decided not to update to 4.26, which I don't fully blame you. All right, so what we're gonna do for this is do the total time first, just make our life easier. It's float plus float. We've already done this before. Hour goes directly in. There's nothing fancy there. Minutes, what we're going to do is we are going to do a divide by 60, just like we did in our game state. So this should seem all very familiar so far. And then for our seconds, we're gonna do another divide. And this is gonna be 3600, just again, like in our game state. So 3600. So that is our total time. Minutes only, well that's fairly simple, right? Boom, that's done. Questions on how to do minutes only? If so, this might not be where you need to be. Okay, so the next one we have is hours and minutes. And this one's a little bit different because we're not coming off of here. We're coming off the return of our divide. And we are going to add together our minutes with our hours like that, so that we're getting the minutes as a decimal value. And we're gonna pass that out over here. All right, go ahead, move back to the main graph again. And I will say that the minutes only you'll be using in versions earlier than 4.26. And it's only gonna be really used for that. And I'll talk about that at the end of the video on how to update your sky sphere. We're gonna move directly on to the rotating the sun. So what we're going to do is we're gonna calculate the rotation. Now, because I want the sun to start over here, and I count this as my east, and that as my west, if we were to think about in terms of Earth terms, Earth astrophysics, that's not astrophysics, you know what I'm talking about. We need to inverse this value. So what I'm gonna do is a float times float. Now this one is a completely optional step. So I'm gonna just mark this as optional, sets sun to other side of map. That's all it's doing. It's setting it so that the game considers this whatever AM. and that over there is PM. Otherwise, the game will count that as AM, and this is PM. I don't like that. I want it the other way around, so I'm just going to inverse the value. Nothing important, it's just optional. The next step is the important step, and there are two ways to do this. I'm going to show you both methods. So in the RTS tutorial series, for example, what we do is float times float, and we multiply by 3600, if I can type, 3600, and then we multiply that, my chair is driving me crazy, by a really small float. And what this float is the increment in rotation per second, or per tick, or per game second. And that's 0.004167. And then we take this and we add in 90. And then we make rotator. And we're rotating on the pitch. This is what we do in the RTS tutorial series, right? That's option one. And that works perfectly fine, except for I think trying to calculate that out can be a bit annoying. Alternatively, a little bit easier probably to work with, what we can do is we can get the modular of our time per day. So the modular per day is what I meant to say, of our time. Let's get the modular per day of our time, which is we take our time, our total time, and divide it by 24, because there are 24 hours in the day. We then take this value, and again, divide it by 24. We then multiply this value by 360. Why 360? Because, well, it's 360 degrees. That's why. Sorry, let me put the sun back to where it belongs. So it's float by float, and this one is 360. We then take this value and add 90 to it. So these are your two options. I'm going to take this, I'm going to highlight these sets of nodes right here. And this calculation, wow, I can't spell. Calculation for rotation. Both work at the same level. Both need to be plugged into the plus 90 pin. I'm going to use a new one just because we haven't done it in a series before yet, together at least. And I'm going to get my sun reference, which is again why we're checking if it's valid up there. And we're going to do a set actor rotation. We're going to use this value as our new rotation. And we're going to take our times -1 and this calculation here, convert this down to a function. This function will be calculate sun rotation. It is a pure function. The input is time, and the output is new rotation. All right. Tuck that there, line that up, bring the sucker over here, and plug that into there. If again, you're working with a older version of the engine, you are going to need a bit of room between these two nodes to do your update on the Skysphere, or not Skysphere, on the Skylight. All right, next what we're going to do. This is for the stage we are at. If you're running in 2.46, this is optional. We will be adding this in down the road regardless, so we're going to do it now. But it's optional because you don't need to update your lighting. It will, or your Skysphere, it'll automatically, your Skylight, it'll automatically do it for you at sunrise and sunset. We are going to have stuff related to our morning and evening weather, however, that will relate to what we're about to do. So we're first going to check if it's dusk. And I'm just going to give you the number I've used because this is not easy. This was a very lengthy process. What we are going to do is check if it's equal to 18, so 6 o'clock, 12, actually it's really, 0.12. What we're doing here is checking if it's a little bit after past 6 o'clock. So this is checking if it's dusk. Now, just gonna line those up. So check if dusk. If it is not, what we're going to do is check if it's morning or dawn in particular. And again, we want to know, is this equal to 5 in the morning or 5.8 in the morning? I did not mean to do that. I meant to put another reroute in. I meant to line those two up. All right, and that goes in there. So this is, we're going to check if it's dawn. So check if dawn. If it is dawn, we'll run through a fog set of events potentially. If it is not, then we do nothing. All right, I'm just gonna move the lightning stuff down because we actually do need a bit of room later on. So if it is dusk or morning, and this part is optional for 4.26, but not optional really if you're in an older version of the engine, we are going to run a timeline at this point. So we're going to pull off this true here and create a timeline. We're going to call this sunset, even though it's not just sunset, it's also sunrise. We're going to open this up, and in here we are going to set our length, our overall length to 52 seconds. 52 seconds represents around 20 in-game minutes. That calculation there. So we're going to create a float track that I'm going to call delta intensity. I'm going to put 2 points in. One will be at 0, 0. And the other one will be at a time of 51.4998 and a value of 1. Let's just line this up so we can see what's happening. We're going to select both nodes, hit 1 so we get a curve. However, I want this curve to be a bit more, well, not to have that sort of growth spurt there. We're going to just push it up a tiny bit, maybe a little bit more, around, or maybe a little bit less actually, around, oh, more. About there is good. Yeah, it's actually where I had it a second ago, really. All right, so we now go outside of our timeline. We have this delta intensity spot, or node. This is what we're going to use to lerp our light's value. And you know what? We could take our sunlight here, put a reroute in, line that up a bit better, and pull from here, and search for set intensity light component. Just going to line that back up. Take this, plug this into the update. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a lerp in. Now, here's the thing. If you're using sky atmosphere, your intensity can never be 0. I mean, it can be. Just never do it. You're turning the sky off. So what we're going to do is actually set our min value, which is actually our B, because remember, we are going at sunset. That's why we name it sunset, from our greatest value, which is 10 currently. So whatever value you have as your default value in your light source, which we set to 10 a few videos back, goes in your A, and the minimum you want, it goes in your B. And I'm going to set my minimum to 0.1. And my alpha is my delta intensity. So as we hit dusk, I'm going to start running this event. And as we hit dawn, what I'm going to do, besides all the fog check stuff I have planned to do, is I am going to run this timeline in reverse. So I'm going to go in reverse here, and there we go. Because I know I'm going to have other stuff going in there. I'm going to put just a reroute for now. Now, if you are doing 4.26, congratulations, you're done. Test this out, make sure it works. Actually, no, sorry, no, you're not done. You're not done. I lied. There's one more thing that we need to do in 4.26. It's very important. And it's the other reason why we have this set up the way we do. We need to set up our post-processing volume. Remember, we added a post-processing volume. I complained about having to add one this early. I want to do it later. Well, at nighttime, if you let the sun set naturally and everything updates nicely, the island glows. It's because the way that the automatic post-processing work, the island glows. So we put a post-processing value in purely for this, so that we can change the lighting in the post-processing volume at night. Yeah, sure, we could turn it off, but there's just easier things to do, like, just updating this. So we're going to create a new variable in our references called post-processing ref. Based on its name, it's a post-process volume. Just like our sun, it has to be an instance that we can edit. The eyeball has to be visible. This will go into references, and I'm just going to duplicate this as valid. And I'm going to break this and put in and boolean in. And are both of these valid? And we're going to do, just to make our debugging lives a little bit easier, print string null pointer. I'm going to take these references really quickly, or booleans for the references, collapse to a function, and check if references are valid. It is a pure function, and the return is B is valid. Let's just go back in here. We're gonna have a few more of these, by the way, which is why we're just making this into a function now. So if they're not valid, we're gonna get a thing yelling null pointer at us. All right, so what we're gonna do is we are going to take our post-processing volume. We are then going to do set members. Okay, we're gonna get settings from this. So get settings. We are gonna take from our settings and do set members in post-processing. This is the part where I always tend to have a little bit of a headache trying to figure out where stuff is. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just move this here for a moment, move these down just a little bit, select the set members, and in our search details, I'm gonna type in max brightness. All right, so I'm gonna select max brightness. There we go. Then I'm gonna go back here and find my post-processing volume, which I believe is in lighting. If we scroll down, no, it's hidden, so we'll just do brightness. We have a value of 3 for our min and 6 for our max. Unfortunately, we have no way to not hard code these in across all of them. So technically we do if you're gonna use the some of the features I'm not showing, but it won't work with this actor. So it doesn't really matter. We do actually have to code this in. We'll take this lerp, we'll duplicate it over here just to save some time, plug that into there, and take from that reroute I put in for our delta intensity and plug into the lerp. Our starting value will be 6. We're going from 6 on our max to 3. So basically we're lowering our max down to our min, which, you know, you can't really see a difference during the day, but trust me, when the sun is down, in the game world, it does wonders. All right, now if you're working on 4.26, we are done with this part for now. And I'm gonna comment this out that this is needed for 4.26. I have actually did not need to do this or have a post-processing volume in at this stage for any version of Unreal prior to 4.26. It's something to do with the sky atmosphere. Now, later on, we will be adding more in after this for both versions, or for any version of the engine related to our fog. If you are working with the earlier versions of the engine, you're going to need to update your Skylight manually. Now, you can't do this on a tick. You can't have it run every game second or every game minute or every real second if you don't want the thing to lag. So what you could do instead is you can get a Skylight ref. You can make a Skylight ref, or not ref, I don't know, I'm sure I typed in ref. Skylight, get Skylight there. Again, make sure the eyeball is visible. And then what you can do, and I'm just actually going to include this as if I'm really doing this, even though I am not going to include this down the road, is when you need to make sure, put a check in, is valid, plug that into there. All right, once we know it's valid, what we'll do is we'll update it every game hour and a few times during the sunset process. So the way we do this is we're going to start with a branch. We are going to then, off the branch on the true, get our Skylight reference. We will recapture sky. This is that really intensive process, that bool checkbox that I showed earlier in 4.26 addresses. And this is, at the end of the day, outside of the volumetric cloud thing, that and this are the reason why we have this set up. All right, I'm gonna take these 4 nodes, collapse down to a function, and this is my update sky function. I am going to plug the condition in there, and then I'm going to do a return off of here, and I'm going to bypass the false, or I'm gonna bypass this on the false and plug into that reroute I just put in. And I'm gonna put this in again. You only need to do this if you're not using 4.26. If you're using 4.26, do not do this, because I will actually be deleting this in a moment or two. I mean, I'll be leaving it in my project, but I'll be deleting the next things I'm about to do. So you want this to run at 2 points. You want one here and one over here. And what we're gonna do, actually technically you want 3 points, 2 over here. So I'm gonna duplicate this. When we are finished, we want this to run again, only for before 4.26. Mark that as true. For this one, what we're gonna do is we are going to just plug that in there, and I'm gonna copy that comment so anyone following along and not listening to what I said only has themselves to blame. We are going to take from our lerp value on our intensity. We're going to use our intensity here to determine when this should fire, and we're going to get a modular. We are going to do a modular, actually, that's off the wrong value. We're going to do it off this reroute. We're going to do a modular off of this of 26. This then therefore should fire twice. Technically, these two might fire twice together at the end. If this results in a 0, so equal 0, then this is going to fire that off. So these are the 2 times you're going to do it at sunset. Twice during the actual sunset process, once after the sun has set. The other spot you want to do it at is right here. You're going to do, again, to make sure that you aren't doing this in in 4.26. This is only for before 4.26. I said that multiple times now. If you put it in 4.26, you have yourself to blame, and I will gladly point that out, not to be a jerk. We're going to take the minutes only, and we're going to do modular 60. So in other words, every hour, this will fire. Now, why aren't we using hour? Because it's going to stay on the hour for 60 game minutes. So we only want it to fire once an hour. We plug that into there, and we're done. That is, again, for before 4.26. So for those of you with 4.26, delete that. You can delete that out, put that return node if you want. Plug that execute back in. Delete this stuff. I'm actually going to undelete everything for a moment. Sorry, I am going to leave all of this not plugged in. I'm just going to leave my references for this in the project so that if I need to make a comment to somebody or help somebody with something, I have easy access to this in the actual recorded version of this series. I'm just going to move things out of my way for now. All right, so that is our setup. Let's go test our day-night cycle because we're 31 minutes into this recording and make sure it works properly. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to hit play. And we can see our clock is working in general. Let's look at our sun by going to full screen. Put our mouse there and take a look at it. The sun is moving, by the way. If you can't tell, it is getting farther up that mouse. Either that or my eyes are playing tricks on me. And by the way, my eyes are playing tricks on me. I intentionally made a mistake here. Now, the reason why you can't see that mistake, and I'm going to not show you the error messages that just popped up on my screen, is because the debug is still on. So let's turn our debug off, and then you'll see the mistake. Null pointer. I actually was really confused. I intentionally let that mistake, and I'm like, why is the sun moving? And then I realized as I was saying it, my eyes were actually playing tricks on me. I'm like, it isn't. I did this correctly. So let's take our weather, and then under our sun reference, remember, sun is directional light. There should only be one directional light, our light source, if you're following along. Our post-processing volume for post-processing, again, if you're following along. And our skylight will be the only one to skylight if you're following along. Technically in 4.26, you can just delete that one. Hit play. And now our sun is over there. I knew it would be lower down, by the way, because the time we put in for our default time is the time for sunrise. Now, we know our sun is responding to the environment. I'm going to leave my mouse above the sun so I can see it's moving and wait for it to start covering my mouse. By the way, it's already started to cover it. We know it's moving. Now, to test this out further, I'm going to just type in slow-mo after hitting the tilde key and 5. And now notice the sun is moving past my cursor. So we know the sun is moving. What we need to test, and to make this really easy, is we need to test our sunrise, sunset. To do this, what I am going to do is I am going to go into my character. I am going to find our set timers, and I am going to unplug it for now so that I can not die. I mean, I could go into simulate mode, also dismiss. I fixed that error intentionally. And I'm going to do a little bit of some walking on water. Look at those God rays. And I am going to type in slow-mo. And then I'm going to put in a very large number. That doesn't really do anything after that point. Like after I can't remember what, I think 100, it stops actually mattering. But this should give us something that will make the sun move faster. And despite me having said that, I'm still going to pause the recording here and resume shortly before sunset. All right, I have this at slow-mo 5, by the way, instead of the normal default game time, which is going to be slow-mo 1, just so we can see the fact that we are getting the scattering effect. So the island is updating. You can see the shadows are moving. If we look up, we're getting the stars to start showing up in the sky. And you can see them showing up around the sun, where the sun isn't at. You can see it's now set in the distance. We're still getting the light off the horizon. And you can see that the sky is now becoming more full of stars. All right, the sun has fully set. It is still running through my, I was actually just finished running through my timeline for our sunset, and we now have a darkened island. All right, so this is what it should look like. If I hit F2, we can see the island. If I hit F3, we're back to our unlit. In fact, you can actually still see the island. You can see the trees. Look at the stars. All right, I'm gonna hit F2, and I'm gonna turn to face this way now. I'm gonna walk back out this way. I'm gonna look out that direction. I'm gonna hit F3, and then I'm going to go back to my extremely fast slow-mo. You can see our sky is moving, and I'm gonna wait until just before 5:30 game time to resume this recording. So I'm gonna pause here. So the game's paused right now. The slow-mo is set to 5. In game time, it is a little bit past 5:30. I was trying to get 5:30 because that's when I know based on just doing this over and over again, that's when the sky starts to lighten up based on my settings. It isn't sunrise yet. This is pre-dawn, or this is the start of dawn, where we're getting, or the break of dawn. I feel so horrible actually using that word, because it makes me think of a horrible, horrible thing. If you don't know what, consider yourself lucky and just move on. So this is the Dawnbreaker. There we go. Skyrim reference instead. So we will see the sun start to rise shortly. This is just a natural event that happens in our sky atmosphere. If I hit F8 real quick just for a moment, we can see that the sky is lightening up around the horizon, and we're losing stars there, but we still have the dark sky up there with our stars. We hit F8 again. I'm going to hit resume. I'm still on slow-mo 5. We can now see that we're getting the pre-dawn light, and the stars are fading from our horizon line. We're getting really kind of nice sort of lighting effects and scattering, and there is our sun coming out of our horizon, and we now have a working day-night cycle. All right, congratulations on making it through getting the day-night cycle set up. Now that we've done that, we can start working on getting, and look at the morning light here, how it changes, the God rays to this. This is why we did all that stuff. Oh God, I'm turning slow-mo back to 1 because moving at slow-mo 5 is actually really weird. We get this nice lighting effects off our trees and in scattering and around our environment. So next what we're gonna do is actually set up our dynamic weather system to work with all the components that we've created. It will work with our day-night cycle. It will work with our clouds. It will work with our rain that I just turned on and the rain I just turned off. And if you want to be here for that, make sure to hit the subscribe and notify icon. If you've enjoyed this efficient way of using the sky atmosphere to properly do your morning and night transitions, so your dawn and dusk transitions, make sure to hit the like icon below. And as always, the series is brought to you by Patreon sponsors like Rian, Connor, Hanas, and 1Vault10. All of that said, if you want to learn more about this project or if you need help, consider joining our Discord community. If you want a copy of this project, consider supporting this channel as a Patreon sponsor. Patreon sponsors at upper tiers get instant access to all ongoing YouTube projects. At other tiers, Patreon sponsors get access once the project is completed on YouTube. All of that said, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.